Welcome to The Explainer. So, if you've been following the news, you've definitely seen the infighting on the American political right. It's easy to write it off as, just politics. But what if the real fight is over something much, much deeper? Today, we're diving into an argument that claims this isn't a political war at all, but a spiritual one. You've probably seen this phrase popping up, MAGA versus MIGA. Yeah, political commentator Benny Johnson really put a name to it. But the analysis we're breaking down today says this conflict goes way beyond a simple battle of slogans.
So what is really going on here? The argument we're exploring makes a pretty provocative claim. It says the main conflict on the right, it isn't political. It's not generational. It's not even about policy. It's theological. We're talking about a spiritual civil war.
To even begin to understand how someone gets to that conclusion, we first have to look at the visible cracks. The very public spats between some of the biggest conservative names that have everybody talking. The thinking here is that when we see people like Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro, and Tucker Carlson going at it, we're not just watching a personality clash. No, we're actually seeing the symptoms of a much deeper, more fundamental ideological fault line that's been rumbling for a while. Now, one of the most common ways people try to frame this whole conflict is through a generational lens. And the analysis we're looking at does just that, contrasting the established boomer worldview with the frustrations of a much younger and, frankly, more disaffected generation. This slide lays out the two opposing mindsets really, really clearly. On one side, you have the establishment view, think figures like Bill O'Reilly, who believe their way of seeing the world is, well, it's still good enough. But then on the other side, you have a younger audience. They're drawn to these provocative online figures because, for them, the old story just doesn't make any sense anymore. All they see is a story of debt, endless wars, and a system that just seems to ignore their struggles completely. So to explain the rise of these provocative new media figures, the analysis uses this really powerful metaphor, the court jester. Back in medieval courts, the jester wasn't just there for laughs. Their job was to speak uncomfortable truths to power, to keep the king from getting a big head. The argument is that these new voices are playing that exact same role today. But here's the thing, this generational divide, it's just the surface. According to this analysis, all of this tension, all of it, actually hinges on how you interpret one single, highly contested phrase. And that phrase is Judeo-Christian values. According to this argument, that term isn't a simple description of Western culture anymore. Nope. It's become a semantic battleground. And how a person defines this term? Well, it reveals exactly which side of this deep spiritual divide they're on. This slide, this gets right to the heart of it. Just look at the two columns. The Judeo part is framed as the Old Covenant. It's tribal, it's land-based, it's an eye for an eye. But the Christian part, that's the New Covenant. Universal, forgiving, turn the other cheek. The critical point this analysis makes is that by gluing Judeo back onto Christian, it's seen as dragging the faith backwards into what the source calls ethnicity and real estate. And that brings us to the absolute core of the argument, that the political split we see on the surface is really just the expression of a deep theological schism brewing within Christianity itself. Okay, so the first of these two theological systems is called dispensationalism. Now, to put it simply, this view sees God's plan for the nation of Israel as totally separate from his plan for the church. The key thing to get here is this. Promises made to Israel in the Bible are seen as literal, earthly, and tied to a very specific piece of land. Then, on the other side of that theological divide, you've got covenant theology. This framework is all about continuity. It sees the church as the spiritual fulfillment of Israel. So those promises from the Old Testament, they're not about a specific plot of land. They're fulfilled universally and spiritually for everyone through Christ. And this slide is where it all comes together. The analysis literally maps these two theologies directly onto the political slogans. So dispensationalism, with its laser focus on a literal land-based destiny for Israel, that gets linked directly to the MIGA, or Israel First faction. And then covenant theology, with its universal view, that's linked to the MAGA, or America First faction. So how does a deep theological debate like this actually play out in the media we all consume? Well, the analysis uses this fantastic analogy from Shakespeare's Hamlet to frame the entire spectacle. The idea is that the public drama we're all watching, it's not the real story. It's a play within a play, and it's being deliberately staged by populist figures to expose what they believe is a hidden crime or betrayal committed by the political establishment. So here's how the analogy works. Remember how Hamlet staged a play to expose his uncle? This argument suggests populist figures are doing the same thing. They're staging a performance, asking all these uncomfortable questions to force the old guard to react. And it's that reaction, the freaking out, that's supposed to reveal their guilt to the entire audience. And this is the absolute key point. According to this theory, when the establishment reacts to tough questions by screaming anti-Semitism, they are overreacting. As the slide says, the lady doth protest too much, methinks. And by doing that, they're revealing their own guilty conscience, just like the queen in Hamlet's play. So, the ultimate takeaway from this whole analysis is that the current fight isn't just about politics. It's a battle to reclaim what the author defines as the true spirit of Western values, arguing that they're rooted in a universal Christian message of forgiveness and brotherhood, not a tribal exclusionary one. And so, this entire framework just completely reframes the political drama we're watching. The king is sweating, the queen is protesting way too much, and, according to this analysis, a whole generation is starting to ask what really happened to the old king, what foundational principles have been lost or betrayed, or are now being fought for.